Sometimes a conversation becomes more than an interview. It becomes a legacy. This week on Reproductive Rebel, we are re-releasing one of the most powerful and heartfelt episodes we've ever shared, a holistic look at cancer with the radiant and wise Kerry Chamberlain. Kerry brought such grace, depth, and courage to this conversation, reminding us that healing is not about the body, but about the spirit, the connection, and the love that we cultivate through every season of life. In June of this year, Kerry transitioned from this world after a long, brave journey with cancer. And while she may no longer walk beside us, her words continue to ripple outward, lighting the path for so many others. This episode is our way of honoring her wisdom, her warmth, and the indelible mark she left in this community. Join me as we revisit her message, one of resilience, surrender, and holistic healing in the face of the hardest challenges. This is for Kerry. May her words remind us all what it means to live fully, fiercely, and with an open heart. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am joined today by Kerry Chamberlain, who is a functional medicine certified health coach. She is a client of mine and she is a dear friend. Welcome to the show, Kerry.
Thank you so much for having me, Adrienne. It's great to be here.
So this is a different conversation that we're going to have, and one that I feel is incredibly important. And as Kerry and I were talking, both just before this recording, but in other conversations that we've had, we both feel that it's really important for people to hear Kerry's story. So that is exactly what this episode is going to be. So if you could introduce yourself to our audience, Kerry, and share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I am a functional medicine certified health coach, as you had said, and also board certified health and wellness coach. And my journey into natural wellness, functional medicine started with Hashimoto's and wanting to dig deeper into that. And so that's what was my story that brought me into functional medicine. Was I knew that for me, Hashimoto's was my fourth or fifth autoimmune condition. They stack, and I did not want another one. So that's why I took a deep dive to make some major changes in my diet and lifestyle to prevent that from happening. So anyway, I worked with a lot of clients and then went through my wonderful menopause journey, which really wasn't too bad, but what it potentially masked or I was unaware of was the fact that I had breast cancer. And so getting a terminal diagnosis and making that hard decision of what I wanted that journey to look like. And for me, I wanted that journey to be one of life and one of wellness and quality of life. So all of the choices that I made were based around that. And I have not had any conventional care at all because I chose to do everything naturally. And now that I've been going on this journey for quite a while, it has been a wonderful choice for me.
So, this is a very sensitive topic. And for anyone who is listening, may even be a triggering topic for you, either because of your own personal journey or those who are close to you that either maybe currently or have gone through this process as well. This is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart because both of my grandmothers had breast cancer and I lost my mother's mother to breast cancer. So we're probably going to cry through this podcast, folks, and that's at least I will. But it's just because like there's a lot to unpack here. And so I just want to kind of put that out at the beginning of this episode that if this is a sensitive topic to you for whatever reason, that this may be a podcast to not listen to in public if it's going to generate a lot of big feels. I know that it does for me for a wide variety of reasons, but Kerry has had such an incredible journey and she has such an incredible story. And it is so outside of that scorched earth model that we see with cancer treatment that I absolutely had to bring her on the show and share her story because there are choices in how we care for ourselves. And even when the narrative makes us feel like we don't have choices, we do.
And I think that's one of the things that I just want to shout from the rooftop is that you do have a choice. You are in the driver's seat of this, and you have all of the choices in your hands. And I know that, and one of the things I want to make sure that I say at the onset of this as well, before I get into my journey, that my journey is my journey. It's not necessarily yours, and it isn't necessarily right for you. I think one of the biggest things that I learned early on in this is that it is really important for us to not be judgmental of someone else's journey. I needed to do what was right for me, for my beliefs, and for my personal family. And so all of us, it's so easy for people on the outside to sit in judgment of another person's journey. And please don't, because you don't know. You might think you know what they're going through, but you don't. And so I think that that's just something that I really wanted to hammer home from the outset before I start talking about what was and is right for me.
I think that's so important with any form of care, whether we're talking about a terminal diagnosis or we're talking about choices that we make that are outside of what people assume is quote unquote, and I'm using air quotes, normal, because our culture has normalized certain ways of moving through the world around certain healthcare trajectories. Okay. And I'm saying that kind of broad spectrum because this could be related to your journey. This could be deciding to have a hysterectomy. This could be, whatever that is. There's like a prescriptive like journey that happens when they give you a certain diagnosis. And this conversation is so important. And what you said about judgment is so important because every body is different. and the journey, the storyline, what led somebody to that point in their journey is different. And you don't know their whole story. And a lot of times, the part that you're creating quote unquote judgment around is usually mirroring back to you something that you see that touches something inside of you. So before making a judgment around somebody else's choices, I'm just going to invite you, and this is one of the places where this show is rebellious, right? I want to invite you to actually consider, when you think about that judgment, ask yourself, what is this reflecting back to me about my values, about my own journey? Because usually that's how we make judgment. So instead of projecting that onto someone else, it's actually a place where you can grow as a person and in your own journey by reflecting on why that brought feelings up for you. And I think that's important, especially when we're talking about health related decisions, because that person is making their decision from their journey and it's no bearing on yours. You create certain decisions through your own journey and your own lens that you see things through, but the two are completely separate. So, thank you for saying that, because I think that's really important. And I think that, especially when you're dealing with really big topics like, what do I want the rest of my life to look like? That it is very easy for people to project what they would want rather than honoring what you would want.
Right. Exactly. And I had to do that. I had to, catch myself and go, whoa, wait a minute. Like, as I started on this road and started on this journey, I had those moments where I had to be like, no, wait a minute. No, where I am, my season of life is different. And I don't know that my choices would have been the same if I was in a different season of life. I have no idea. And it's kind of irrelevant because here I am right now and I'm doing me. And that's all that's important. And yeah.
It is what's important. Doing things that feel aligned to you. And that alignment, Kerry, has done so much for your quality of life. So, if you're comfortable, would you share a little bit about what that journey has looked like, walking in alignment with what you want your quality of life to look like?
So the ironic thing is, being a functional medicine health coach, I have been in this natural space for quite a while and had done so much education on natural cancer treatment and learned that just because you have cancer doesn't mean it's necessarily a death sentence. And also learned that to not be terrified by that word, because so many people hear that word and they just freak out, shut down, and will do absolutely anything that they are told to do. So the ironic thing is that many years ago, I had already prepped my family that, like, hey, guys, just so you know, if I ever get cancer, I'm not doing chemo and radiation. You just need to know that's not me. Like, it ain't happening. And they're like, okay, mom, whatever. And yeah, fast forward a couple years and boom, there we go. And it was interesting. The only conventional part that I had was meeting with a surgeon and having a sonogram. And in that sonogram revealed that the tumor was attached to my chest wall And so therefore it could not be surgically removed. Had there been a surgical option, I probably would have considered that, but there was not one. And the doctor shared that, and I said, okay, thank you. And she could tell right away that was a dismissive thank you. And she was like, but wait, there's so much that, and I said, no, thank you. And thank you for your time. And I'm not interested in that route. And she was like, oh, okay. And yeah, I said, no, I'll try to shrink it on my own. Thank you. And there we go. And I just knew in my gut at that time that I didn't need to hop on the hamster wheel and go down all of these crazy rabbit holes and all the fear mongering. And like just that one time that I went into the hospital was enough for me to know that no, this doesn't feel right for me. I don't want to be in these places and just their own fears. Like I remember the ultrasound tech doing the ultrasound and just kind of going, oh, so what did the doctor say? And the friend that I had with me, we kind of looked at each other and went, okay, this is way worse. And nobody's telling us. But, it just didn't resonate with me. That was where I wanted to be or should be. And I'm so glad that I didn't go there because I just knew instinctively that this was a oh shit moment. And like, we're going to throw absolutely everything we can at you because this is really bad. And when there is no surgical option, like it took me a while to process the fact that when there is no surgical option, you are essentially given a terminal diagnosis. And I think it's like for me, I think it's cruel to make people think that, and I've kind of watched this unfold over time, that people are given this false sense of hope in chemo and radiation and all of these surgeries, and that the interventions tend to cause more problems than the actual cancer. And I unfortunately had just had so many close friends that had relatives that had just been through all of these things and had watched their journeys and what that looked like for them and the toll it took on their families, really. And so I had a lot of information to pull from. And I knew for me that I didn't know how long God was going to give me, but I knew without a shadow of a doubt, I wanted to be whatever time I had left on this earth to be the best quality of life that I could possibly have. I wanted to be playing with my grandkids and have the ability to do that. And if I was having chemo, I would be too sick to do that. And they wouldn't see a vibrant grandma. They would see a sick person. And that to me wasn't living. Yeah.
So this is why I said at the beginning of this conversation that it might bring up tears for me, because I deeply resonate with what you just said about your grandkids seeing a vibrant version of you and not one that was too sick to engage with them, because those are my last memories of my mother's mother. And she was my favorite person in the whole world. So it was hard to see her that way. And I really honor that choice that you made for yourself and for your family, because it takes a lot of courage to and strength and trust and faith to stand in your own sovereign power and say, this doesn't feel aligned to me. This is not what I want. And this is what I'm choosing instead, especially when it flies in the face of what collectively people around you are like, well, why didn't you do this? And, I'm sure you probably got tired of fielding questions like that at some point.
Actually, here's the thing that's amazing. I have been surrounded by the absolutely most supportive group of people imaginable.
That's
Like,
awesome.
there has only literally been one person that has said anything negative to me. And that person has a strong ideology in the medical establishment and doesn't know me very well, has a deep love for me, but doesn't really know me. So understand that, they were just doing the best that they could with what they had on board. But everybody else has been like, oh man, girl, if it was me, I'd do the exact same thing. Like
Oh,
they
that's awesome.
literally, I have that because I was prepared for that. And I was totally prepared for that. And I kept quiet for a very long time because I did not want that negativity.
Mm.
And as a result, there was no negativity. Like there has only been support and appreciation for my decision because all of my other friends have seen the opposite. And like literally one of my close friends, her sister had gone through, like very recently, had gone through the whole breast cancer journey and had gotten that quote unquote, you're cancer free term. And within, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks of her getting that, oh, you're cancer free, she had a grand mal seizure,
Oh,
ended up in the hospital, paralyzed. And after a week or two, she started to get her mobility back, but only to find out that the cancer had spread into her brain and that she only had a couple of weeks to live.
wow.
Yep. So to put a family through that emotional roller coaster like that is just, I don't know. For me, I just feel it's so cruel and hurtful, and no family should ever have to deal with that because they think they know. They think they know. They think they have all the answers and they don't.
Mm.
And that's the thing that troubles me is when you have a medical establishment that acts like they're God
Mm.
and they have put themselves on a throne above everybody else. And they just look down on us like, we're their little subjects. And that's, yeah, I didn't want to be one of those stories. Like, I know how this is going to end, and it is going to end in a wonderful, amazing way.
On your terms.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's so important.
it is. It really is. And the thing that's so cool, and I don't know if your questions were going to get here or not, but the cool thing is that the journey has been so beautiful and been so healing. And I know that, we all have hard backgrounds and difficult stuff that has happened to us. And my life was filled with a lot of lifelong trauma. And so it has been a hard life from a trauma perspective. And the cool thing is that choosing this path of natural healing and to deal with this naturally has instead brought a beautiful, peaceful chapter into my life, because the naturopathic doctor that I eventually found a year ago, actually, the first thing he said was, okay, we got to deal with your traumas. Like, because, yeah, sure, we can look at the cancer, but if we don't address the trauma and get to the root cause of why this thing blew up in your chest, then it's irrelevant, anything else that we do, because it's just going to come back someplace else. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize when they enter the conventional realm of cancer treatment, is that that world doesn't address their traumas. It doesn't address their lifestyle. And the things that need to be changed don't get changed in order for actual healing to happen. And one of the main reasons that I can say this has been an incredible, beautiful journey is because I had to look at that right off the bat and go, okay, you know what? I've known that there's been traumas for a long time, and conventional talk therapy is not good for trauma. And I had tried to go down that road a couple of different times, and basically all it does is re-traumatize you. So having gotten in with a trauma-informed program was huge. And to have known that we actually touched every trauma there was, like past, present, you got it. Like, we've worked through all of that to the point that I actually graduated the program. Like, how cool is that? And I've had numerous situations, because, life still happens, but I've had numerous situations that have popped up and I'm like, huh, nope, not triggered by it. Like, yeah, I mean, anytime obviously you're gonna be upset if somebody does something horrible to you, but I'm not dealing with rumination or any of that anymore. It's like, yep, that happened. Yep, that's on that person for being a crappy individual. I don't need to take that on. And so the cool thing is that has, whether the tumor is ever healed or not is irrelevant, because my soul has been healed. The inner part of me that was broken for so long is healed. And there is nothing more powerful and beautiful than that. And these are tears of joy for that, because that is like victory, baby. Like, huge to be free from that burden, that lifelong burden of trauma is just, it's amazing. There are no words. And so choosing to have treatments that bring just wonderful, I don't even know the term to use for it, but like with you were the first person that held space for me and that taught me what that meant. Like, to literally hold space around a person for healing. And that was just part of that kind of really started it. Like, oh, okay. Like, this is different. And that really started to calm down my nervous system, and through the pelvic steaming and through the acutonics, and made me, like, you prepared me to receive healing. And so when I went out to the clinic in Idaho for 3 weeks last January, like, we had already been working together for a couple of months. And that really prepped me to be open to receive everything that they were going to do and offer for me. And, we did trauma work out there. We did a bazillion IVs. We did all of that natural stuff. And I was open and ready to receive that. And it's interesting because, some people might be like, yeah, what does acutonics and acupuncture and chiropractic have to do with healing cancer? Okay, it's not about healing the cancer necessarily, as it is helping your body to be in a place where it can receive healing, where it is able to heal itself. And that is why it has been such a beautiful journey, because I have been surrounded by women who have held a space for me and have put my body in a position where it can do the work that's needed to support it for quality of life, and what I've recently come to realize, quantity of life. So
That's something I actually wanted to tease out in this conversation. You
Mhm.
said something that really hit home to me in one of our appointments. And it was, you were talking about the progression of your symptoms, and you were talking to another professional about symptom progression. And they were astounded by the fact that one symptom happened at one time, and they would have expected a second one to happen like within a month or a month and a half afterwards, based on their lived experience. And it actually was like many months later. Is that something you're comfortable to talk
Oh yeah.
about?
Yep.
Because
I'm
that
more than happy to talk about
really
that.
hit home to me. I was like, let's talk about the power of bringing your body into right relationship and how that gives you quality and quantity both.
So this is a great segue into the other thing that I've become passionate about in my journey. So that professional that you're talking about is one of my hospice nurses. So I have actually been on hospice for 4 months now. And even though, yeah, I'm active and busy and still driving myself places and doing all of that stuff, I had read this amazing book called Nothing to Fear by Julie McFadden, who is a hospice nurse. And in that, I strongly recommend it because it's amazing. And in that book, she has a chapter for people that are dying. And she's got kind of like a checklist of things to go through. And one of them was reach out, decide what hospice agency you want to go with, meet them, like just start the conversation. And I was like, all right, I'm going to put my big girl panties on and I'm going to start this conversation and check this off my list. And so they came over on a Friday, the nurse and the social worker, and I met with them. And it was a really good meeting because I had read the book and I had gone through all of the myth debunking and had learned that just because you're on hospice doesn't mean you're going to die in 2 weeks. And so I wasn't afraid to have these conversations. And so we did. We had our appointment and I got examined and everything. And they left. And then I got a phone call that Monday from the social worker, and she said, okay, so this is what you need to do this is who you need to reach out to for financial piece. And yeah, and she's going on about that. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but we don't even know that I'm medically qualified. So why would I even start down that road? And she's like, well, wait a minute, let me take a look at the nurse's notes. And she checked into that and she goes, oh, yeah, he talked to the medical director and you're medically qualified. And I'm like, wait, what?
Wow.
And I said, so what you're telling me is the good news is I qualify. The bad news is I qualify. She's like, yeah, hospice is like that. So I did all of the paperwork and got everything in place. And I'm like, you know what? If I qualify, then there's no reason to not start because I know I'm not dying tomorrow. And I want to establish relationships with these people who are going to be with me at the end of my life. I don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of strangers who were brought in at the last minute. Like, I am now developing these deep relationships with these people that now are getting to know me and are loving on me. Like, that is just huge. So that's just something that I want to encourage people that are in a terminal situations. Please don't wait to reach out to hospice. They're so wonderful and they have so much to offer. So anyhow, it was one of these appointments with my nurse. My nurse comes in once a week and examines me and takes a look at my wound. And so she was examining me one day and she goes, so remind me again how long it's been since your skin started dissolving. And I said, last February. And she goes, huh. And I go, why do you ask? And she said, well, normally from a time that a person's skin starts dissolving to where you are now is usually about a month. And for me, it was 9 months. So that was just like my aha moment that I just went, oh my gosh, like I was going for quality of life. And I had no idea how much quantity I had gotten. Like, that was just incredible. And we just recently had another situation where now I've got a tendon under my arm that's kind of pulling on my bicep. And I had asked my nurse about that. And I was like, hey, so look at this. And does this normally happen with, women in my situation? And she's like, Kerry, honestly, I don't know because women in your situation can't lift their arm up.
Wow.
So, yeah. So they first of all, they don't have intact immune systems. They don't have mobility. And I'm sure there will, as things progress, I'm going to lose that. I'm under no misconceptions that this ends beautifully. It doesn't. But the fact that I have had such quality of life and have kept my mobility and physical abilities is huge. I mean, a couple months ago, I was whitewater rafting.
I was going to say,
and the fact that, I was able to still use my arm for all of that stuff. Like, if I had a radical mastectomy, which I wasn't capable of having anyway, but still, I wouldn't have been able to do those things. And because I still probably wouldn't have function it's definitely not that kind of function. But here I was hauling a raft down to the water and doing all that and axe throwing with my chiropractor and
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you've been able to do bucket list stuff.
right.
You and I've talked about that. And like, because you guys are listening to this and you're not seeing all of the vibrancy that I'm seeing in this conversation, I also want to pin into what we're talking about here. The fact that when Kerry walked into that office to do the paperwork initially, they thought she was bringing paperwork in for a relative, not for herself, because she had such beautiful color, she had such vibrancy. Like, I've been working with Kerry for a long enough period of time now that it honestly has been hard for me to believe that this vibrant light of a woman has a terminal illness, because she always comes in with sunshine and pep in her step and laughing and joy filled and all of these things. And like, while I know what it is that we're working on, there's, in my own brain as a practitioner, there's been a bit of a disconnect, only because even as a practitioner, I'm used to seeing a certain presentation. And when you pull all of the chemicals out of your lifestyle, like Kerry has, and made the dietary changes that Kerry has, and supported herself with herbs and with pretty regimented protocols. So this isn't like, yay, I take a pill and everything is magical. Like, that is such a like bunch of BS in our culture. And like, so I don't want anyone listening to this to think, oh, I can just take an herb and it will fix all my problems. Like,
And I think at some point we need to come back around to what I do.
yes. And I think that's important. It's really important because Kerry has worked very hard to maintain her quality of life. However, she's also a testament to when you deal with the emotional underlying body, which more of my work is moving in that direction, because it is such a powerful part of the equation. And this is, where you were talking about working through your trauma, big T, little t trauma, literally just overworking yourself, burning the candle at both ends and having too much stress can put you in this situation. So like, there's a whole long list of unhealthy lifestyle stuff that we tend to gloss over in the name of keeping the peace, in the name of productivity, in the name of, fill in the blank to keep up with the Joneses and appearances, right? And it requires a really big mindset shift to embrace the healing that Kerry's talking about. She did the work. I have never seen a client that has not fully committed and done the work that does not reap the benefits of it. Because our bodies are brilliant and they always want to heal themselves. And even in a situation like Kerry is in, where she can see that there's a little bit of a war going on between the cancer trying to do its thing and her body trying to do its own thing and heal. And the healing has been winning because you've maintained this vibrancy and quality of life for such a long period of time. But she has made some really huge shifts in the way she moves through the world, the things that she's doing in her life, the healing. Even like, it is hard to look at the shadow side of our life experiences, of our past histories, all of those things. But there's so much deep healing that happens when we sit down and we address it and we work through it. And that's one of the places that I really felt like my role in supporting her journey was to help unlock the box to allow of that addressing and that releasing of the things that weren't serving her and were keeping her body from right relationship. And providing, because acutonics is like acupuncture with sound. So using the tenets of traditional Chinese medicine, but using frequency, the way that our body understands messages, vibration and frequency, to support her journey in the ways that she needed as her journey progressed. I've always met her in that space where she's at. And thank you so much for sharing those two pieces, that conversations you've had with your hospice professionals, because that really hit home to me. That not only did we help you maintain that light and vibrancy that I just adore and love about you, and is your magical gift to give to the world, you also extended the journey, and you were able to do all of the things that you wanted to do, this whitewater rafting trip, traveling to visit family, like all of these things that you've wanted to do, you've been able to, because your quality of life has met you in that space.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just, what was it, 2 months ago, just flew out to Ohio to visit my son and daughter-in-law and granddaughter. And like the cool thing was is that I was able to, through hospice, get a travel contract so that I could have hospice coverage while I was out there. And it was
Oh, wow.
it was so cool. So, and it was really funny. The social worker was like, "Okay, so who's going with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, nobody's traveling with me. Like, I'm going by myself." She's like, oh, okay, that never happens, but all right."
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "Listen, it's a direct flight. I'm going to be fine. Someone's dropping me off, someone's picking me up, we're all good." So, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful that you've been at this point in your healing journey where you're embracing these tools that are available to you. And, you speak with so much love for the people who are supporting you, that I don't blame you. Like, while I'm not in this position, I felt the same way about my birthing journey. I wanted to be surrounded by people who I developed relationships with, and I knew were going to love and support me through that process. And I wasn't going to end up with some stranger I had no connection to.
Right.
Our outcomes are better when we're in a space where we feel held and seen and supported, and trust that those
Yeah.
around us are helping us in the highest and best good. So, that's so important, Kerry. And I definitely want to make sure, because I could talk to you forever about this. Like, there's so much in your journey that I think is important for people to know and unpack. But I definitely want to touch upon this, what you've done to support yourself piece, because, I did an episode in season 2 called Holistic Healing is Not an Amazon Prime Kind of Fix, because people really do think that you can treat natural approaches the same way that you treat conventional approaches, and that, like, there's an herb for a symptom, there's a prescription for a symptom. And that's not at all how holistic healing works. This is a mind, body, and when I say body, we're talking about the emotional body, the energetic body, the spiritual body, like all of these things make up all of you. You're not separate ingredients in a cookie, which is the way the traditional model. You've got one person that deals with your ears, nose, and throat, one person that deals with your uterus, right? Like, we're not disparate parts. How we feel, our emotional body affects our physical presentation. And true holistic healing addresses all of the aspects that make you, your spirituality, your emotional trauma resolution, working with trauma-informed professionals, being able to really dig down into your essence self and express yourself in an authentic and true and vulnerable way. That's so hard for so many of us because it takes an immense amount of courage, which is again why I said like it takes so much courage for you to share your journey. And I just honor that so deeply. And I'm so grateful that you are sharing your journey with us. So, what kinds of things have you done on your journey in order to be able to realize these amazing healing and life extending benefits that you have experienced? You feel the symptoms before you understand them. The restless nights, the hormonal shifts, the sense that something deeper is moving beneath the surface. These aren't random, they're messages, invitations into the next chapter of your life. This January, step into Rebel Remembered, a year-long journey where your symptoms become signals, your cycles become teachers, and every stage of life becomes a rite of passage. Each month, we explore a new archetype, a new layer of feminine wisdom, and a new way your body has been asking you to listen. Through ritual, sound, body literacy, and ancestral remembrance, you'll reconnect to the woman you're becoming, not the one you were told to be. If you are tired of pushing through, if you are craving clarity, connection, and a map for what your body is experiencing, if you are ready for a year of reclamation, then join us for Rebel Remembered. Enrollment is open now. Your body has been waiting for you to remember.
So I think it's important to a couple of things as we get into that. It is important to note that, yeah, I was already doing the stuff. Like I walked the walk, talked that I talked with my clients. And it was pretty shocking to me when I got that diagnosis because I was doing absolutely everything that I knew how to do to stay healthy. And like I was eating a organic diet and a gluten-free diet and a soy-free, corn-free diet and low sugar, and I was doing all that stuff. But when I got the diagnosis, I knew it stood right out to me that, oh, yeah, there is this one big glaring area that has not been dealt with, and that's the stress. So that whole stress component had not been dealt with. And so fortunately, it was good to have some time to work through that. And at the beginning, I still kept doing my diet. I tweaked things a little bit and eliminated absolutely every bit of sugar out of my diet immediately. That was the first thing I did. So the first person I worked with was an herbalist, and she was like, "Oh, here's my protocol that I give to everybody with cancer. Go do this." And I was like, "Oh boy." But at that point I was like, okay, like, this was a person that had come recommended, and they were very different with this other person that they treated, and they actually did personalized herbalism for this other friend, but she absolutely did not with me. And so I did that for a few months, and then I found a naturopath that had a clinic, a cancer clinic, and he was just doing consultations now. And so I consulted with him, and he gave me his protocol. And he was like, "Oh, well, you've had breast cancer. You must be estrogen dominant. So you need to do this." And I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. Like, these people they just don't know me. They're not trying to get to know me. And so finally, I found Dr. Michael Karlfeld, and he was doing a cancer webinar thing that was going on, and I had watched a couple of his interviews, and I was like, all right, I like this guy. And like, he's speaking my language. And I got an appointment with him, and immediately off the bat, he was like, yeah, we need to get some blood work. We need to figure out what's going on here and tailor things specifically to you. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm in. Like, and come to find out, as healthy as I was, healthy, quote unquote, healthy as I was, high in 3 different types of mold. I was high in formaldehyde, mercury, and then also was riddled with parasites. So that was all very shocking that all of that was revealed. But we also did extensive food testing, and I realized that some of the foods that I ate all the time, like apples, carrots, almonds, blueberries, well, all wonderful, healthy foods, and avocados were all things that I were sensitive to. So I was keeping the inflammation up in my body. Oh, and beef as well. So the inflammation was still being driven because I was eating things that my body was sensitive to. So essentially, it was in a much better situation than a lot of people when they first like make this switch to a naturopathic approach. And so I didn't really have an awful lot in my diet to change. But what we did do immediately was go to, the best way to describe it is a keto pescatarian diet, I guess, because I don't have meat anymore. It's actually the Kelly protocol that I'm on, but it's no meat, but I can have fish, I can have eggs, absolutely no grains, absolutely no sugar. And then, so layer on that the foods that I'm highly sensitive to that had to come out as well. And then the foods that I'm mildly sensitive to that I can rotate every 3 or 4 days, I can have them. So that's really important to note. I also have to do coffee enemas twice a day. And that keeps making sure that your bowels are moving, that your liver is purging and detoxing every day, that you're getting that bile movement out, and that any dead cancer cells are getting out of the body as soon as absolutely possible. We are doing, yeah, I do have a lot of supplements that I'm taking. The cool thing is, though, is that we're always, he's checking my blood work every month to 2 months, depending on how I'm feeling. And whatever that blood work reveals, he will then pivot and, pull some things out or put some things in. There's herbs in there, there's supplements. When I started, I had one point that I dipped several months ago, and we brought in plant stem cells, and that really perked me back up. So that made a big, huge shift. And that's kind of another funny thing, like with my blood work, my hospice nurse take a look at my blood work, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're like the healthiest person. Like, I wish my blood work looked like this. And so, yeah, I mean, like literally, yeah. So we have numerous conversations around that kind of crack her up. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a couple numbers that aren't that great, but like even my white blood cells are back in the normal range. So my blood work continues to look better, even though like the cancer is progressing. It's interesting. It's very interesting. But that's why it's so great to work with him, because he's keeping an eye on all of it and the whole package. So as far as like doing the work, like holy mackerel, like, yeah, I've done the trauma work, and I've made all of these dietary changes. And like, I literally, everything I eat has to be made from scratch because there is nothing that I can eat that's packaged. Like, there just isn't. And so I've, had to modify a lot of recipes and come up with different things that, like, sometimes a girl just has to have a cracker. And so, like, I make this seed and pecan cracker that, I make from scratch. I also do green juicing. Like, he wants me to have 2 cups of green juice a day. So that's, oof. So I do batches and I make like about a week's worth of juice at a time and freeze it. And so, but it has been quite the shift, for me, even like to do all of this stuff. And back to that trauma piece, to put me first. Because what I have had to do is tell everybody, like my family, like, no, I'm sorry, I can't take care of you anymore. Like, I need to take care of me. And that's also part of the ironic thing, is that if I had done some of these things years ago, the stress maybe would not have caused these cells to start multiplying out of control. And it's thousands of dollars every month to do this, but it is way less than conventional therapy. Way less. And boy, and if I had just spent a fraction of this on myself sooner, maybe I could have stemmed it. I don't know. I mean, for me personally, God is sovereign and he knew what was coming before it came. And I know that my journey will be used, with interviews like this one, to bless other people, to encourage other people, to say, no, you know what? I want to do something different. Like, I don't want to have the slash and burn choice of treatment. I want to have the health and the life form of treatment. Because that was so interesting. I mean, that's another huge, like, aha moment for me, has been like, we are so indoctrinated to believe how horrible cancer is, yet it hasn't been that horrible. Like, I have only recently started to deal with some pain and discomfort, and that's kind of managed at this point pretty well. It's more kind of discomfort, but I think what we see is the people who have been ravaged by the treatments, not the actual cancer, because that's what has been shocking to me, is that, yeah, I still have a beautiful head of hair. I still have great skin. I still have great nails. Like, it's been crazy to all of these, to kind of juxtapose the things that we think of and that we see to what I'm experiencing. And like, my hospice nurses just look at me and they're like, yeah, we wouldn't even know you're sick. And that, and that kind of speaks to what you're saying, is like, all these different people would come in and out of my house to meet me, and they would think I was the family member. They didn't realize I was the patient. They were like, whoa.
Well, that's the disconnect in my own brain. It like, you're so vibrant that, and you still have so much life, and you do have a great head of hair. I'm really jealous of your hair, by the way. She has this beautiful wavy, mine is straight as a poke. Like, she has this gorgeous hair.
Girlfriend, I just want you to know I had to have my thyroid fail in order to get this beautiful curly hair because I had pin straight hair until my thyroid started to go and then it started to curl.
No
Yeah,
kidding. Oh
no
my
kidding.
word.
So
Well,
there you
she
go.
does. She has beautiful hair. I love her hair. But it's so true. Like that's where the disconnect is in my brain too, because there's so much vibrancy. And like one of the things that we look for as Chinese medicine or Eastern medicine practitioners is like, the brightness in the eyes, the luster of the skin, the coloration of the skin. Like there's so much that you can tell just like looking at a person's face about how good they feel or they don't. And like she just has always like blown me out of the water with how she looks when she comes in every time I see her. And she does have all of her hair. Like it's true. The treatments do so much to our bodies that we lose our life, literally.
Yeah, it was interesting when I was out in Idaho. I had two different practitioners out there at two separate times said to me, "You don't have death in your eyes." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And then I thought about it, and one of the guys like elaborated on it and he goes, "If you did, I wouldn't say anything to you. Like I just wouldn't mention it. But because you don't, like I am going to mention that to you." And so that has been really interesting. And I still don't have death in my eyes. Like, yeah. I mean,
No, not at all.
yeah. I mean, I have no idea where this is going to go. I mean, I'm definitely slowing down a little bit more. And, I've had a couple speed bumps here and there. But the cool thing is that not to have to be in the traditional medical model at all has been wonderful. And that's the other thing that's so cool. Like my hospice nurses have been amazing. Like one of them is just this huge medical freedom warrior. And like there has been like zero judgment from any of them, like any of the workers. It's just been incredible. And that's another misconception that I want people to know. Like they're supporting everything I'm doing. They haven't said, "Oh my gosh, like you can't do your coffee enemas anymore and you need to stop taking your supplements." No, they're just like, "Keep doing what you're doing, girl. Like you're doing great. Like this is awesome." And it also has given me a platform to share with them some of these things because there's so much of this stuff that they've never experienced and they haven't seen. And it looks so different to them because they don't know. Like, sure, when you get put on hospice, it's usually because you only have 6 months left to live. But honestly, my nurse is scratching her head. She's like, "I just don't even know." Because like you're just not going downhill as fast as I would expect you to. And yeah, that's just it's so wild. But I think, another really important part in this journey has been to not fear death, not be afraid to talk about death. And that has been another big leap because I think a lot of people make the choices that they make as far as treatments go because they are so terrified of death. And once I was able to, well, first of all, I never had that terror. Like, I know where I'm going. I have 100% assurance of where I'm going, and I don't fear that. I think my only fear was pain. Like, that terrified me. Who wouldn't be scared by that? But what I learned in the book is that death isn't actually painful. Like, the body knows how to be born and the body knows how to die. And just learning that was like, huh, that's really interesting. What causes pain is when people do interventions, when they try to give fluids and food to people that are in the active phase of dying, that causes more problems and it causes more pain. And so just learning some of those things really helped to put my mind at ease, and having that shift of being able to just go, okay, you know what? For right now, this is what's happening. I have had healing in one area of my life, and that I feel like is the most important, is healing my soul. And if God chooses not to heal this tumor, then that's fine too. The choice that I have, the biggest choice that I have, is how I want to die, how I want to live the rest of my life. And, I want to do that well, and I want to enjoy every moment and embrace every moment of this journey, because all of it has been so educational and so transforming for me as a person. And I am not the person today that I even was a year ago. Like, I am not the person that walked into your office that first time.
I would agree with that. I've seen a huge shift in your perspective, in your responses to the world, your understanding of things that are happening in the world. Like, there's been a huge shift, huge shift.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it's not healthy to not look at these things. And I mean, there's a lot of people that are in denial and don't want to or can't because it's too traumatic for them. But for me, it has been super helpful because it's really helped me to get clear on what really is important and what isn't. And to not waste my precious time bogging myself down with just crap that doesn't matter. Like, literally just stuff that doesn't matter. Like, yeah, you know what? If there's dishes in the sink, so what? Somebody else is going to have to do them. And it's, and there's funny, I have a little bit of a dark sense of humor from time to time. And like something, the funny thing is that, this is just another one of those perspective things. Like something will fall on the floor or whatever, and I'll pick it up and I'll be like, hey, what is it going to kill me? I mean, seriously, and to be able to release a lot of that stuff and a lot of those silly fears and yeah, and the woulda and the shoulda and all of that garbage. I mean, we had a Christmas party the other night with a bunch of ladies, and one of the ladies is just so bogged down by, well, I wish I had been able to do this, and I wish I had been able to do that for this party. And she had like blessed us with so much that she had already done, but she just had all of this weight that she put on herself about the things that she didn't do. And it's like, I think there's a book that's called Let That Shit Go. And like, really, and it's like my girlfriend shared that with me. And really, it is a great mantra, because you just got to let that garbage go, because it doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve your healing. It doesn't serve your life. It's just added stress that our body and our soul does not need. It doesn't serve us. Yeah.
I think that is such an important point. And that's something that I kind of want to recap some of the things that you just said. One of those things was setting healthy boundaries around things. And then some is letting go of societal expectations. Like, we hold ourselves to this, we need to have a Better Homes and Gardens looking party house or whatever. And like, really, in the grand scheme of things, it's small shit.
And that's the thing, like, I'm glad you said that, because there are some of us that, like, our character strength is appreciation of beauty and excellence. So I don't want to minimize that there are certain people that, like, they, just having their environment look pretty helps them feel better. And that's not the people that I'm talking about and that you're talking about. It's the people that are just completely bogged down by the like, oh my gosh, like my everything needs to be Pinterest perfect, or like it's not even about like, please get off of social media. Just say
Walk
no.
away.
Burn it. Like none of that is good for anybody. And I'm one of those people that is just uber sensitive to that stuff. And I just can't stand it because it just puts all of the stuff in your face that are the things that, you know, people as a whole, we're so easily drawn into the negative. And that social media just like shines a light on that, of making us feel like crap about ourselves, that we're not this and we're not good enough. I just want to say, like, you are enough. I am enough. We're enough. We don't need to add all of that other stuff on. And that, you know, and that was part of the stress that I lived in for so many years, of putting that garbage on myself. Well, maybe if I was this, and maybe if I was that, and if I was better at this, and if I was better at that, you know what? That's just BS. It really is. And I don't know where we get all of that from, but it just needs to be blown up.
I
Yeah.
love that. I'm in a group, and one of the exercises that we do at the end of the year is if you were to write a letter to people in your life, those that you love, as if this was the last day, you know, what would you include in that? And that really helps you get clear on what's important and what isn't important. And as I've been listening to you talk, I feel like you're embodying that letter. You know, at the end of your life, what is it that truly matters, truly mattered?
Yep. That is so true. And that is, I mean, that's a hard one too, because like I literally am being asked to write those letters. And that's like, wow, you know, and some of that stuff is hard to have to ponder. It really is. But it's good and it's healthy because it's part of the journey. And, you know, part of the trauma work too is like when these emotions and stuff come up, to be able to just go, okay, you know what? That does make me sad. And it's okay to be sad. And we're sad and we're not going to camp out here, but we're going to acknowledge it and then we're going to move through it. And once you move through it, rather than getting stuck on that emotion, it's super helpful because, you know, I've had things that I've been like, I don't want to do that, you know, but once I have just acknowledged why it's hard or why it makes me feel a certain way, and then step into that and walk through it, I've come out on the other side feeling much better and much more at peace because I had addressed whatever it was that needed to be addressed.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
yeah.
I think that's so important too, especially when living in a culture where we numb out
Ooh,
instead of addressing our
yeah.
shadow and addressing things that trigger us and make our quality of life challenging. And what you're speaking to is doing the shadow work and being willing to essentially step into the fire and go, I know that this is a challenge for me and it feels gross doing this, but I'm stronger and I come out the other side a completely different version, kind of like that idea of the fire burning and consuming and then the phoenix rising, right? Like you're more beautiful and stronger when you come out on the other side of it all.
Absolutely. I mean, there's that refining fire that we go through every day. And, that's what they do with precious metals. They burn it off, burn off all the impurities, and then we come out so much shinier on the other side. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think about every transformative moment of my life and I was like, ugh, it was so gross going through it. But then you come out the other side and you're like, I can't imagine having not done the work where I would be. I mean, I just look at my own healing journey because my journey is the foundation of my practice, Moon Essence, and how I got here and why the podcast exists is because I've walked through a bunch of fire too, and I've got trauma in my background. And I watched two grandmothers struggle with breast cancer, and I watched a mother have a hysterectomy for multiple fibroids that, had some of these tools been available, like I'm literally looking at the intergenerational trauma side of the equation, and I'm choosing to do things differently. I'm having open conversations with my daughter and my children that I couldn't have imagined happening in previous generations. And because, it's time to do that work, it's time to do better. I'm so grateful for you sharing your story and your journey through this whole process because as I've been listening to you, like my brain's been going ping, like there's all these things that I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you said that. Oh, people need to hear this. So, this is an episode that I think you could listen to more than once and share with people around you, whether they're on a journey with cancer or not. This is a journey about life. This conversation's
Absolutely.
about life.
Absolutely. Because, these are things that had my younger me had heard of this, maybe I would have gotten that trauma healing sooner. Maybe, I wouldn't have looked at, oh my gosh, $200 a session. Are you kidding me right now? Maybe I would have gone, ooh, that's going to keep me alive. Wow, acupuncture every month? Are you kidding me? No, that's going to keep me alive. So, doing those regular self-care things, and I don't mean it in like a silly froofy way. I'm talking like legit, like I don't think that we realize as women, we are intricate beings and we try to grab the world by the balls and just go. And that is not how we're designed. It is not. It is very contrary to what our bodies were created to do. And I've helped numerous women balance their hormones. And like that is such a delicate balance. Like we are not men. We are women. Men's hormones are virtually the same every day of the month. Ours are different every stinking day. Like every day. Even after we are in menopause, our hormones are fluctuating. And what little hormones I have left, they're still doing their little dance. And learning that we can't just grind through this life, that we have to stop. Like our bodies will tell us something's going on. And it is usually a tiny whisper. And if we're not stopping long enough to hear that little whisper, okay, Kerry, you need to take a break. Or Kerry, your body needs acupuncture. Adrian, your body needs a massage. Listening to those little things. And so many times we're like, yeah, but I got to go do laundry. No, I need to go do this. Like, no, and creating healthy boundaries around what our needs are, and like actually really validating the fact that we have needs. Because so often as women, we literally dismiss every need we have to take care of everybody else's needs. And it is so detrimental to us. And I know that I am 1,000% guilty of not paying attention to my own needs. And I know that comes from childhood trauma of, not learning as a child to listen to my needs, but being trained as a child to ignore mine and serve other people. Most importantly, the narcissistic parent, to serve her needs. And so that is so important that we learn those things about ourselves and break those cycles so that we can get into a right relationship with ourselves and taking care of ourselves, because it's not selfish to take care of yourself. It's actually great because it literally is putting your own oxygen mask on first so that you can care for others.
Oh, there's so many good gems in there. So many. This whole martyrdom idea, whether you're a mother or not, I did an episode, The Martyrdom of Motherhood. But I mean, this extends to just being a woman in general. Like, we are socialized to care for everyone first at the expense of ourselves, and we are guilted and shamed when we don't fit that bill. And you said it beautifully. Like, we have a dance of hormones that are always happening in our body. And we've been socialized to think that's a bad thing. And it's not. It gives us gifts. It's beautiful. It's what makes us able to support and show up in the world in a completely different way than our male counterparts do. And that duality is a gift. I think that we are socialized to want a whole world of little men, and our healthcare model has only done studies on women's bodies like we're little men.
Right.
But we're not little men.
We're not. And, and that gets into a whole nother ideology thing too, which, I don't want to go into, but I think it is important that we do really recognize the reality of the fact that we are women. We were designed and created to be different than men. They have their great attributes and we have our great attributes. It is not a contest. Like, they were designed for a purpose. We were designed for a purpose. We have an amazing purpose. Like, we are able to carry life and give birth and do some pretty incredible things. And that does not lessen us whatsoever. But when we try to shove ourselves into that male box, we then get all of the male diseases that they get because we're not honoring our bodies and what our bodies need. It was only literally probably as I was going through menopause that I learned about all the different phases of your cycle. And that, there's a certain phase where you can do a lot of activity. Then there's another phase that you need to chill out. And then there's another phase where you just need to hunker down and nourish your body. And I was like, how did I not know this stuff? And it was just like, wow, because I look back on all of that and I'm like, all of the times that, like, when I was having my period that I just tried to grind through and that I wasn't honoring my body and what my body needed, because even though I didn't buy into that, oh, men and women are just the same, I didn't buy into all that garbage. I still treated myself like that. And that's what's so insidious about it, is we don't even realize that we're doing it. And yeah, so breaking free from that is huge.
That's how deep the socialization goes, though.
Mm.
And that cultural expectation, that's how deep it goes. We don't even realize we're doing it. And, it's one of the reasons that Reproductive Rebel exists is I started creating educational opportunities because you're not alone. There's a lot of women that don't even realize that their body's doing anything outside of their bleed, and their bleed is so problematic that they dread it coming, and
Yeah.
they don't realize that their body is giving them gifts and that they excel at different things at different times. It's a total shift in the frame. You're not incapable during certain parts of the month. You're just wired to do different types of tasks. And
Exactly.
yep. So like I have a course called Cycle Productivity Secrets for that reason, because it's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's that your hormones are just giving you certain talents at different parts of the month. And if you know how to harness it, you have more energy, more vitality in your body because you're not trying to swim against the current the whole time.
Exactly. And that's where, as a health coach, I've worked with people to like create their list of non-negotiables and coming up with those non-negotiables of, you know what? Like, if I am at this particular phase in my cycle, I am going to say no to A, B, and C. And even though my body may be craving all of the sugar right now, I am going to say no to the sugar, and I am going to say yes to the things that are going to feed the nutritional needs in my body so that it is more able to get through this. All I can say is I am so glad that I did not know until after menopause that I was sensitive to meat, because having a burger and a steak when I had 3 weeks of bleeding when I was in perimenopause, like, man, whew, I wouldn't be able to do that.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing, is having your tribe of women, because that was one thing that I had started a fitness group with a bunch of ladies, I don't know, probably about 9 years ago. And the cool thing is that I was the baby of the group. And so all of these ladies had already gone through menopause. So I could like pick their brains about everything. And also, too, I had a really great naturopath at the time who was like, who, normally if you had gone to a conventional doctor after you had been bleeding for a couple of weeks, they would have been like, oh my gosh, we got to do all this testing and da-da. And that's what one of my friends did. She went through all of that testing, and the people, they sent her for a sonogram. They didn't even know how to read the sonogram. They didn't even understand the fact that the lining of your uterus is a different thickness every stage of your cycle, and made her think that she had cancer and all these horrible things. So fortunately for me, I just called up my naturopath and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And he's like, you know what? Your iron levels were fantastic. Like, lay down, take some extra rest, take some extra naps, have a couple burgers, like eat your meat, nourish your body. You got this. And I just chilled out and did what he recommended, and I did have it. It was great. I didn't do any of that conventional stuff. My menopause, my perimenopause, and menopause was actually pretty gosh darn good. Yeah. All things considered.
Say that's a whole conversation in and of
Oh
itself.
yeah,
That
it really
menopause
is.
doesn't have to be the hellacious experience that people make it out to be.
Mm.
Honestly, it can be an incredible gift because you're stepping into being more aligned with who you are and giving a lot less of a shit about what
Hmm.
people think. And so you vocalize your needs more, you're more comfortable in your own skin. Like there's just so many beautiful gifts that come with that part in our life. But again, we're socialized to fear it and dread it and expect that it's going to be a symptom-ridden ride from hell. And it doesn't have to be.
Well, and that's why I encourage women to, like, if you're 40, like, now is the time. Now is the time to make those diet and lifestyle changes, start taking care of your body, get that junk food out, clean it up, and, start nourishing your body with all of the rainbow colors. And because it's the work that you do on the front end now that really helps support your body later as you go through that transition, because then your hormones are like, oh, okay. Like, your body knows what to do. It's just when it's taxed by so much other stuff that it's not freed up to do that. And I'm so thankful that I was in, the functional medicine world that was talking about all of this menopause stuff and talking about like really like pulling back when you're going in perimenopause and you're like entering menopause to kind of cocoon a little bit and protect your energy and protect your space. And so that once you have gone through that transition, you just come out as this beautiful butterfly. And it was so good that I had done that, because little did I know, like, I had probably had cancer for years. I mean, nothing just becomes as huge as it did, as fast as it does. Like, there had to be something brewing. And for years, I might not have been aware of it, but it was so good and healthy for my body that I had taken that step back when I did. And because, I was ready to like go crazy with my business and get all, like, yeah, let's get out there. And thank goodness I didn't, because, that there was so much more on the horizon. So pay attention to those. There's my words of wisdom, darling.
So many good things there, honestly, so many good things. And the last piece that I kind of want to call out before I have you give your final parting thoughts for this episode is the part where you said that things had been brewing for a while. This is really like one of those other tenets of holistic healing that people kind of struggle with in a pill for a symptom kind of world, is that you didn't get here overnight. It has been brewing over a period of time. This could be burning the candle at both ends. This could be diet choices. This could be that daily Mountain Dew. This could be, a whole bunch of things. And it didn't happen overnight. It's been years and years of certain choices and habits and belief systems. And when you finally offer the pattern interrupt, then you start to see healing and change. But you have to interrupt the pattern that got you sick in the first place. And that is where I find a lot of people struggle.
Yeah. My pattern interrupt was a cancer diagnosis. I mean, I was very locked on to diet and lifestyle. The portion of the lifestyle that I wasn't addressing was the trauma and the taking on of burdens that weren't mine to bear. That was huge. And I have always been a get her done type of girl. Like, I am an energizer bunny from the time my feet hit the floor in the morning until I collapse at the end of the day, like, go. Like, I'm not sitting down. And that did not serve my body well. And because that's once again treating me like a dude, and I'm not. And part of that, in fairness to myself, I have 5 brothers and 3 sons. I was not surrounded by any women. The only one was my narcissistic mom, and who came with her whole host of unrealistic expectations. So so that wasn't good. So, yeah, so just not having any of that female energy around me, I did take on a lot of that male energy and modeled myself after that because that was all I knew. It definitely is very interesting. And as I look back over all of that, that if I had not been stopped cold in my tracks, like, no, like, boom, cancer, boom, you need to deal with us. Like, there ain't no more running, sister. Like, you need to deal with this. You need to address the stress in your life. You need to address it once and for all. And truly take care of you, because that dealing with that trauma and dealing with that stress, that is super hard. Like literally it's easy to eat gluten-free compared to dealing with your stress, And so having to really face that and address it is, it really did take an act of God of me getting sick before I would stop long enough to go, we have a problem and this needs to be dealt with.
Ooh, I feel like that's a really good segue to final thoughts for this episode, because I feel like that is the kernel right there. Is we push through and sweep under the rug and push through, and the body eventually, whether it's I catch everything that my kids bring home or a cancer diagnosis, that you eventually will reach a point where your body goes, girlfriend, sit down. You need to address what's happening here, and something needs to change. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. And so I feel like I have a lot of final words. We're having a 4-hour podcast. Hopefully you guys don't mind. No. And that's it. Like, I just implore every woman that's listening that don't be so strong-willed and set in your ways that you have tuned out listening to your body and what your body needs. That creates some healthy boundaries around what you need, that you are worth it, that you are enough, and you do deserve care, and you do deserve space to just be you and to be held. And I feel like it would have been so different had, years ago, had I been in some of these relationships with these women that I'm with now, that had I been having space held for me, that sacred space, what a difference that would have made. It's pretty interesting. I think back to when we first started pelvic steaming, and you tried to explain it to me, and I was still in the checking one thing off of my list mode and not understanding how imperative this step was prior to getting on the table. because for me, it is so important to calming my nervous system down and getting me ready to receive that next level of healing. And it makes my body so much more open to that. And we need to have those moments in our life where we stop, we unplug, because you don't let me have any devices when I'm sitting on my potty. Like, how often is it that we really sit with ourselves and have that quiet? And it sounds so crazy to say this, but like, I have really come to enjoy my coffee enemas because I am like, I can't do much anything else. And it is time to just sit and be still and ponder and not have those distractions, because it's so easy to have those distractions. And we do need time to just process what's going on in our life, to just be still and know. We need those moments. And because those are healing moments, those are restorative moments. And it's crucial for us to have those. So I just encourage all of you. And you know what? And yeah, sometimes we get bad diagnosis. It happens. But the question is, what are you going to learn from it? What are you going to take away from it? Because, you can be a victim and go, oh, woe is me, and why did this happen to me, and da da da. I know why it happened to me. Like, I'm not a victim. Like, I needed a punch in the side of the head to wake me up that things needed to change, which is why whatever course of treatment I chose would have been irrelevant had I not paid attention to the things that I needed to pay attention to and dealt with the things that I needed to deal with. So I think that's just really important that, all of these things are gifts. And no, it's not great to have cancer, but it has been a gift. It really has, because it's taught me more than I would have learned on my own. And that is, a tough confession to make, because I've just been too hard-headed to see it on my own. And there was just nobody in my sphere of people at the time that was saying to me, like, no, you need to stop. Like, you need to take time for you. Like, it was all, okay, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? Like, and it's really important that we have loving people in our lives and nurturing people in our lives that are able to have the bravery to say, like, listen, you need to take care of you, and how important that is. So I just, yeah, that's what I got.
Oh, this is so good. I just want to thank you again for your authenticity, your courage, your strength, your vulnerability, sharing your journey with us, because there are so many, like, I would encourage anyone listening to go back and listen to this episode more than once, because Kerry really landed on so many of the gems that
I talk about in my own practice around setting healthy boundaries and using your voice, advocating for yourself, prioritizing yourself, that self-care isn't selfish, that we need it as cyclical beings. Like, there's so many themes in this episode that just speak to literally all the work that I do in my practice. And I'm just so grateful that you took the time to share your journey and your story with this audience. And so, any pieces of this that resonate deeply with you, please share this episode with other people. Kerry has given us such an incredible gift of her time and her energy and sharing her life's story and journey with us. Please share this episode with other people, whether they're on a cancer journey or they're struggling with their health. There are so many aspects of this episode that will resonate and speak with people. So again, thank you so much for sharing with our audience. Please, everybody, share this episode far and wide for anyone who is encountering any health challenge, or if you know that there are themes that resonated with you deeply around creating boundaries and, wow, I should probably take inventory of what I need and pause. And what can I give back to myself? Like, any of those themes, if those resonate with you, hold them for yourself and please share this with others.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.